Hello again. It's not been easy watching from Brooklyn this forum that I've come to love these past 8 years. I apologize again for not being with you. COVID-19 laid me low. I do not recommend it. Your body becomes a stranger whose battle consumes you. Still, here I am, restored. We're all learning about resilience. Democracy demands it. I'd like to thank Achilles and the whole team in Athens and elsewhere that made this particular forum possible in physical and virtual form. Extraordinary work has gone on behind the scenes, and really, I doff my hat to all of you. Thank you so much. Humans were not made to live in rectangular Zoom boxes surrounded by the same two familiar four walls at an antisocial distance from one another. Something in us rebels. Without touch, existence pales. The pandemic has made us lonelier. It's exposed the fearful animal in us all. And yet, by changing our habits and obliging us to reflect on the excesses of 21st century agitation, the virus has also stirred something that I sense throughout these proceedings, a radically intensified demand for new ways of living, working, and consuming that safeguard our depleted planet, promote social justice, and reinvent democratic citizenship. As Valerie Keller remarked, it doesn't work if it doesn't work for us all. This is, as Anna Diamantopoulou put it, a new phase of history. Contrary to what Margaret Thatcher said, there is such a thing as society. Community is making a 21st century comeback. We the peoples, Andreas Bommel's nice phrase, are demanding that. Mario Monti's antibodies, the response of democracies to their failings and to the rise of nationalist autocracies, have stirred. A friend of mine opened her closet the other day and felt that she was gazing at the clothes of a dead person. They belonged to the world of yesterday. She had no use for them in the age of the coronavirus. Like her, I think, we are all looking again. To see what? How fragile life is and our civilization, how our planet burns, how there may be more to discover in being still than in running, how less may be more, how much a loved one may be missed, how hollow the temples of consumption are, and how one morning through the mist, the towers of Manhattan may look like the medieval towers of San Gimignano, relics from another era. How authoritarian thugs strut with a new assurance, how easily truth may be devalued, how the technology that connects us may also repress us, how China, with a new swagger, a brazen confidence that its one-party surveillance state is the answer, look how we tamed the virus, offers its, in my view, chilling model to the world. How, in the very country that has stood as a beacon of liberty, my own, the United States of America, a political plague from on high threatens the very basis of democracy, the right to vote and have those votes counted on November 3. Yes, the unthinkable is possible. History teaches us that. I confess that I feel a great foreboding. I've not this year had the Parthenon to console me, to lift my gaze and remind me that all things pass, but not the eternal human questing written in that white marble, a questing for beauty, for moral order, for harmony, justice, and peace. This forum is inseparable from the quest for a better world. I like very much what Brad Smith said. Nobody is perfect, but you are a lot better if you try. Nobody is perfect, but you're a lot better if you try. That is the spirit of the Athens Democracy Forum, at least as I see it. In fact, Achilles, you may consider it as a slogan. The answer to being challenged is to raise your game, walk the walk, and cut the talk. Listening to Cohen, Salvador, and Andrea Benzon, who did just that, as they gave their tutorial on how to mobilize for democracy, I just thought, wow. These young Europeans, so tech adept and creative and determined, indignant at Hong Kong and Tibet and Xinjiang, moved to revitalize the European Union after the baloney of Brexit, did console me. Yes, you're a lot better if you try. Humanity is a crooked timber, and as Kant observed, out of it no straight thing was ever made. The genius of democracy is to accept that as the baseline, to know that utopian perfection is the most dangerous of illusions, and in that knowledge to provide a framework, as Juan Guaido was just suggesting, in the rule of law, freedom of expression, a free press, an independent judiciary, checks and balances, for the avoidance of the worst. There is punditry, and then there is the fact that you never know. President Trump and the First Lady have tested positive for the coronavirus at 32 days from the election. October, yet again, is the month of surprises. All bets are off. I wish the President well. I have not had much occasion or reason to say that these past several years. I will not dwell on his mockery of science, masks, and truth. Remember Lincoln's second inaugural, with malice toward none, with charity for all. Let us bow our heads to that. Unfortunately, President Trump has never ruled with those words in mind, but rather, I think, by stirring hatred, fear, and racial division. If the United States gets from here through the November 3 election to the inauguration on January 20, without mayhem and possibly violence, it will at this point, I think, be a surprise. President Trump has made clear his disrespect for American democracy. He has declined to condemn white supremacists. He would countenance a conflagration if that's the alternative to defeat. He cannot conceive of the citizens of this country saying to him what he said to so many on his popular TV show, "You're fired." In that shameful debate this week, Trump said, with no actual evidence, that the election was a fraud and a shame, that it was a rigged election, that his supporters should go to the polls and watch very carefully, thinly veiled code for voter intimidation, and that the Supreme Court, where he's moving with unseemly haste to reinforce the conservative majority, would have to look at the ballots. He declared, "This is not going to end well." Could his intentions be any clearer? It's one thing when Russia tries to sabotage an election, as in 2016. It's another when the President of the United States appears intent on doing so. We are living a nightmarish moment of American derangement. Never has the humble citizen with a ballot, alluded to by Mayor Kostas Bakoyannis, invoking Churchill, felt more important. Joe Biden had his finest moments in the debate, looking Americans in the eye and telling them how sacred their vote is and how he will ensure that it is honored. Let it be so, and let our worst concerns about this coming election prove unfounded. For global democracy would be hard-pressed to survive the demise of the world's oldest. As Jefferson observed, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. I assure you, we will be very vigilant. We, in a still independent press, free press, will be very vigilant. We will be stubborn. we will be resilient. For decades, the United States eyed Europe with anxiety. Would it survive the Soviet threat? Would communism prevail and democracy fail? Today, there's a reversal. Europe watches the United States with a profound anxiety and dismay. I came away from a 2-month recent stay in Europe feeling that the Union has stirred. This Union, the miracle of the second half of the 20th century, it's stirred, provoked by Trump and Brexit. It has realized that given the direction of Trump's America, it has a special responsibility as the moral leader of the Western democratic world. Merkel and Macron share this conviction. The Union must be a driving force when it comes to the incarnation of core Western values of freedom, democracy, openness, and human rights. It must lead the way to a greener world beyond the combustion engine. It can set an example by providing decent living standards for all and building smart states that are accountable and transparent. As long as President Trump, with his fondness for dictators of every stripe, is in the White House, the United States cannot be the leader of the free world. I'm not sure that mantle will ever be recovered, for power has shifted. The Union, given military realities, cannot replace America, but its voice has never been more important for the preservation of human dignity. And I felt many European voices during the proceedings in Athens, speaking loudly and clearly about Europe's determination to revitalize democracy and to move toward a more federal Europe. Already, the EU has been more forceful on Russia and China. Its relationship with China used to be purely commercial. Now China is seen, rightly I think, as a systemic rival. I confess that I was alarmed by Eric Lee's dismissal of the West as lands of liberal dysfunction, where societies are in the pocket of big industry, and, quote, special interests that represent capital have captured the political system. I did wonder, after the Chinese Chernobyl that was Wuhan, and its demonstration, if any were needed, that autocratic states are incapable of openness in moments of crisis, like the outbreak of the virus in Wuhan. They're incapable of openness because they suppress dissent. It's really not the moment, I think, for China to boast of its systemic superiority. Brad Smith was very clear. Facial recognition, he says, chills the rights of people to protest and assemble. Massive public surveillance threatens the ability to speak out. Nathan Law, and how moving he was, made very clear how China's draconian national security law, combined with such surveillance, has had precisely that effect. The more people listen to Smith's words, the better for democracy. The EU has been very critical of China's human rights record of late. It recently imposed sanctions in response to Chinese suppression of protest in Hong Kong. That, I think, is part of Emmanuel Macron's push for strategic autonomy, part of Merkel saying we have to take our fate in our own hands, part of Ursula von der Leyen saying that the Commission has to be more strategic, not bury itself in bureaucratic details. This is the new European assertiveness, and it's very welcome. And I felt it with all of you. These are hard times. Fear is rampant. Millions have lost their jobs. The virus has taken far too many lives. The European Union was a form of insurance against times like these. It was a brilliant notion, one that President Trump has never begun to understand in his dismissal of the Union and of NATO, the cornerstone of European prosperity and stability, and incidentally also of a lot of American prosperity. It wasn't a zero-sum game. No, both sides benefited from the transatlantic architecture of which he's been so dismissive. In fact, these days, I'm not pessimistic about Europe. I am much more worried about the United States. I never thought I would say that. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have the Parthenon this year, but I do have the Statue of Liberty. I'm lucky enough, from my apartment in Brooklyn Heights, to look out daily across the East River to her torch held aloft. It never fails to stir me, not by day and not illuminated by night. She, Trump notwithstanding, is the spirit of the United States of America. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. I am a naturalized American. This country and this city, New York, took me in, made me belong, set me free. It's an old story, and I tell you what, it's not over. America is an idea or it's nothing. Wandering around the archaeological ruins of Greece, as I love to do, I've sometimes wondered, does the caryatid in her stoic grace even know the burden she carries? We might ask the same of democracy and the miracles it undergirds. In the same way, I've wondered if liberty, with the prow of Manhattan Island behind her, can even begin to imagine to how many millions she has given hope. The caryatids, liberty, the Parthenon. Our forum is about the stubbornness of hope. I will leave you with a poem, as I generally do. This one by Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet, and I've been thinking about it in these difficult times. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house, empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. We all have our stories. You cannot take South Africa out of me, or Europe, or the Jew, or the United States that's been a beacon of my life. Let the stranger in, for the stranger may enlighten you. Free societies, free democracies do that. Taken cumulatively, and having listened to you all, I say even now that decency will prevail. The construction of a united Europe will be reinvigorated, and American democracy will resist the demons that Europe knows far too well. Thank you very much.